right, let's do this.
Just don't talk so much.
I know. There we go. Hey, y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I need to stop talking so much, apparently. So, yes, I noticed you gave me a dig this morning because, of course, I had to give you a dig.
Yeah.
There was a little Twitter stuff that Elon said.
Touche.
Yeah. Elon said he was going to up the cap to 5 gigabytes for videos on Twitter. And I said, that'll be great, except for my conversations with Scott. So, so there you go. So anyway, then Scott said, yeah, you got to stop talking so much. So we are going to, this was like super impromptu here. We're going to sit down and we are going to look through the Starship launch and do a little bit of, what is that, armchair quarterbacking maybe? I guess that would sort of be it.
Monday morning quarterbacking? I don't know.
Monday morning quarterbacking. It's been a while. So it's been a busy day. And okay, can you see that?
Yes, I can.
All right. And I think it's worth noting that I did not live stream myself, but my wife said that I should have because she was like, you were screaming like a psychopath, staring at your computer screen screaming. So
I listened to Ellie's live stream and I think she was louder than the rocket itself. No doubt about it.
I think so. And also, just for the record, who was it? One of the folks that was down there said his Apple Watch warned him that it was going to deafen him, and it hit 100 decibels, 5.5 miles, or about 10K from the launch site. So,
wow.
Yeah. Wow. Briefly, he showed a record of it and went boop, 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 and then came back down again as it took off. So yeah, it was very loud. So, and So, okay. So hopefully everybody can see lovely Starship. Of course, the heat tiles are black, which is the reason why you can't see the frost lines on the top part. And the bottom part, the O2 is the larger of the two, correct? I believe that's right. And then the methane is a smaller one.
I'm not 100% sure on that. I thought the O2 is not, but I could be wrong. We should probably check that out.
Yeah. Anyway, I shouldn't. I'm not guaranteeing that. I just always remember usually the O2 is like the mixture is like 2-to-1 or something like that. So I think it's bigger. But the interesting part, of course, is that the methane is cryogenic. Normally with rockets like the Falcon 9, the kerosene is at room temperature. So, so we're looking at 2 cryogenic propellants, which is interesting. So anyway, so this is 22 seconds before launch. I'm going to kind of get us, and I'm not doing the sound here because I'll leave a link to this in the description. You can obviously go watch. This is at about just under 45 minutes into the live stream broadcast from SpaceX. So counts down. And then as we get closer here, you'll see the engines light. They kind of stagger light. So, and then there's a boop, boop, boop. So they don't all light at the same time.
You see all that there.
And then I think we're going to start seeing big pieces of concrete.
Debris. Yes.
Yeah. Debris. So look at that sucker. That is huge.
Yep. And you see a couple others going off to other sides.
I think there might even be one way out here. So there's one piece. So this is, as we've talked about, right? You believe, and I believe that this is a major reason why some of the engines were out from the start.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because we lost 3 engines right at the start.
Yeah.
Now they lost a couple engines, I think, on the static fire as well, and I don't know if that was because of debris or just other stuff. So so 3 went out. One of the center ones, which is kind of important because that's where you have a lot of the vectoring coming from there.
Right.
And then 2 of the outer ones. Now, suspiciously, the 2 outer ones were next to each other. So if it's just an engine out because the engine just decided to fail or something went wrong, it's kind of suspicious they'd be next to each other. So they both may have either taken the same hit, or when one of them ruds, it takes the other one down with it.
Right. And I mean, to put this in perspective, again, this is a highly successful test flight. It's incredible that this thing is, it was honestly like watching me try to launch a rocket in Kerbal Space Program because I suck at it. And it's like, kind of doing this whole thing as it goes up. But anyway, in just a second, they're going to overlay the engines. They'll show like the 33 and they'll show the ones that are out. So we'll see that in just a sec. But over here, where my mouse is kind of wiggling around, you can see this piece of just that's huge. This is a gigantic ship. So that is not a tiny piece of debris. That is monstrous.
Yeah. Now, as far as debris, there was a lot. I think there was a stream on Twitter. I think Lab Padre or someone had something set up actually very close.
Right.
And it was just raining down concrete. You just see these chunks just flying all over the place. It wasn't like 2 or 3 pieces. There was just stuff scattershot all over the place.
And then if you watch the Everyday Astronaut, Tim Dodd, he and I can't remember who the woman was who was with him, they were talking, and it was a solid it was after the explosion, a good 5 to 7 minutes after the thing happened, and they just got rained on with dust and stuff. So
yes,
it's just crazy.
Yes.
So yeah, so this created quite the plume of stuff. But let me just back this up a little bit so we can go rewind to this. So just watch as it goes. You can just see these gigantic pieces of probably concrete off the pad just flying up into the air.
Yes. So let's look at it again.
Right. So again, and so these are staggering. They're not all lighting.
Looks okay. Okay. Yeah. For a second there, just go back for a second.
Oh, yeah.
Go back a second or two.
So where do we go?
Go back to almost T-0.
Okay. Let me see if I can. I know we can go back a little bit.
Right when it ignites, and then I'll tell you when to stop.
Yeah. Okay. And I can go back and forth a frame at a time, but it would take forever to go.
Yep.
Seconds.
Stop. And then go back just a little bit, because I saw something which looked like an additional flash of something kind of coming out a little bit to what would be to the right side. That it was kind of bright orange. Now, it could have been an object that just got caught up and was on fire and came out, or it could like be a piece of an engine that was going. Slow down. So because you'll see something every now and then, you see some sparks and some other things that look a little bit funny and aren't part of the normal plume that you're not expecting.
And FYI, the tank farm that's on the right there, apparently a bunch of them have holes in them now. So
I can believe it from the concrete going through. Yes, I can believe that. Now they cleaned that area up pretty well. When I was down there on Monday, it was much cleaner than the last time I was down there. Where just like there's all sorts of stuff there. It was just empty except for the tank farm. So they made sure most everything was down. Yet there were still a couple of guard shacks, and I don't know if they removed those guard shacks or not. I wonder if they're still standing, because there's no way. There's absolutely no way.
And FYI, for anybody who's been down there, we're in the ocean right now. The drone is over the ocean shooting this from the beach. Like that's the direction of the shot here. Right? That's correct.
Yes.
Because the road goes straight into the beach. So that's where we are.
Yes. Now I'm trying to look up. They probably do both the same. I'm not getting something for the booster, but definitely for the Starship itself, the O2 is at the bottom. So
okay, that's right. So that's the larger of the two tanks. So yeah.
Yes.
I mean, if we back that up before it gets bright, you can see that from the frost lines. Yeah, right there you can see in between the two. There's like a dark line where there's obviously the tank the separator between the two. So yeah, so anyway, boom, 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 boom. We're never going to get through this all, but yeah. But
so you can see, you see some hot things kind of sometimes coming out in the cloud,
right?
Because you see the cloud going out there, and every now and then there's something bright orange in the cloud.
And of course, it's overexposed, which makes it a little difficult to see what's going on.
Yes, but I'm looking out on the edges of the dust cloud, and every now and then you'll see something.
Right.
And so we see those chunks going up.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've just hit T+0 right now. So you can see it lights up, and just FYI, they were going at 90%, I believe. Is that correct? So, yes.
So they were only going to 90%, not 100%.
Right.
And I think Elon said that normally it would just jump off the pad, because the Falcons and others, I think, are like maybe 120% or 125%, something like that, of thrust to weight ratio.
Right.
And this is supposed to be 1.5.
Right. So this thing should get up and go, and it did not.
Should get up and go. So when you take the 90% off, it should still be above it. But when you take out 3 Raptors, you're now down at 122%.
Exactly.
Or 1.22 ratio, thrust to weight ratio.
Yeah.
Assuming that the other engines were performing at 90%, they could have even been cut back.
Yeah, and also, of course, because again, once we get further on and they show the status thing, and you can see it later because you can actually literally look at the engines, but you can see they're all on one side, most of them.
Yes.
So it's going to have to do some crazy compensation to keep.
Yes, exactly. So that's the other problem is that some of those engines are either going to have to throttle up to 100%, which they probably didn't want to. So they're at 90%, which means the ones on the other side would have to go down to get the whole thing to balance out.
Right.
And remember, they were afraid, even with like the winds. I think Tim Dodd was talking about if the winds are blowing in too much, they were afraid it would go into the tower. So you just can't say, oh, we don't have to worry about thrust vectoring at that point. No, you do. You need to make sure. So if there's suddenly an imbalance, and there is, because you get 3 engines out, which means now it's going to be vectoring the way you don't want it to, and those engines are going to have to react really fast.
Right. And we're at +3 here, and it still has not left the tower. So it's
right,
just hanging out there.
And when you and when you leave the tower, at that point you don't have any momentum, which means at that point it's much easier to fall over.
Exactly.
So your asymmetries are worse now. Once you get moving, it's a little bit easier to compensate for it. So now that's critical.
It's not the same thing at all, but you could imagine like riding a bicycle. When you're moving very slowly on a bike, you can fall over. In this case, it's just like, again, balancing a broom on your fingertip, except you're trying to accelerate that broom into space at the same time. So it's pretty crazy. But anyway, I believe maybe one of the reasons why so much damage happened was because it sat there so long that all the crap like on the concrete pad just started coming up into it.
Well, because there's T-0, which I think is when they released the clamps, but you still have a few seconds before that. So already it's experienced more than 3 seconds. Maybe when did it start lighting up at like T-3? So it's already
it was about, I think it was a little closer to 0, maybe like -2. But Steve, you can just see it's just starting to move right now at T+3 seconds. So it's hanging out down there a long time, and that means there's a lot of time for stuff to come bouncing back up.
Which might mean that they haven't fully throttled up to 100% yet,
right?
Or 90%, wherever they were going to go. Because I was wondering, when's that thing going to move? When's it going to move?
Right, and there's no flame diverter, but it's not easy to see how you're going to build a flame diverter because. Look, you can obviously see that the water table is basically where the rocket is because there's water there. So you're going to have to do a Dutch, dam kind of thing and actually build it under the water. Maybe a tunnel that goes under and comes back out the other side or something.
Back up. Or you just had to build the whole thing higher. I mean, that's how the Atlas was built the same way.
Right.
If you look at the launch pads of the Cape, they're well above. They're much higher. They build a frame trench and then you go up a little bit higher.
Yeah. So which is why the crawler thing is, if you go to NASA, the Kennedy Space Center, the crawler actually has the ability to go up several degrees. Like it can bank itself because it has to go up that ramp to the very, very high. I don't know that SpaceX is going to want to rebuild the tower because it was very expensive to build. So at a guess, but I don't know, maybe they'll have to build a whole new tower. That would be very long if they have to do that. So,
so lessons learned here. This is the first data point.
Yes. Yeah. So here we have, before this even gets off the pad, data point number 1, build a flame diverter. Right. So.
And the other thing to keep in mind is that when we're looking at like the Falcon 9's takeoff, they clear the tower at somewhere around 6 or 7 seconds.
Right.
But it's not, what is this, 400 feet tall? So this tower is a little bit taller.
Right. So let's just keep going, kind of flame at a time. Sure. Yep. But we should start seeing pieces. So I think it's starting to move off the pad now.
Yep.
You can see the tip of the nose just starting to rise.
Just starting at 5 seconds. Yeah. You're really starting to move.
So, but now we're going to see big, giant chunks of stuff. Also notice that there's something coming off the Starship. It looks like there's like sparks and stuff coming off the Starship up at the top. It's possible it's just vented methane that's catching fire.
That could be. And it's also hard to see that there's something very bright there, but that's probably just reflection off of the booster.
Oh, I think. Oh, yeah. So here you can see on the left that chunk that I noticed before, like right here. So that's starting to enter the picture. That's big. Okay. Whatever that is, it's really big. And another one, there's 2 more, or maybe 1 or 2 more.
Okay, stop right there. You see there's going to be some bright spots on. That might be nothing. That's probably just the dust. You can see a little peak hole there. All right.
But you can see that the tip has just cleared the tower, but we've got huge chunks of concrete. I assume it's concrete. I mean, it could be
anything.
Yes, huge chunks of something bad, something hard that should not be hitting the rocket. I mean, I hate to make an analogy to this because, of course, this is not tragic at all. But the Columbia disaster shuttle, when it was hit by foam, I mean, this is way harder than foam. So,
it's being hit. It's being hit by a lot of debris. No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
So in a way, they probably got lucky that this thing didn't run on the pad because it easily could have tipped over if more engines had been damaged.
Easily.
Yeah.
Or just been, or they would have had to do a shutdown because they just didn't have enough thrust.
Right.
Okay, so keep going. Then I think at some point we might see some other bright flames that look unusual. Yeah. So it's kind of going up.
We'll go a little bit faster once we get off the tower. But yeah, this first part, of course, is, as Scott said, the most critical because it's going very, very slowly. So,
making up there, and I think it's around 13. It starts to make it up.
Oops.
Yeah, every now and then you see something peek through the dust cloud, and it's hard to say if that's just a dust cloud kind of breaking open or if there's something else going on down there.
Right. But sorry, it won't let me just press it down and keep going frame at a time, which is rather annoying. But I don't know. I think the clouds.
You see some weirdness there, almost like looks like a lightning going on.
Yeah,
I kind of wonder if that's just
is. Yeah.
And some of that is probably just the fact that it's very chaotic. There's a lot of turbulence, everything else. The other thing might be that, there's actually, it seems like flashes. It seems like there's some bright flashes, like something is just igniting and burning down there. So there's probably a lot of debris at that point. Because now you see it, you don't see really anything bright, yet the frame before that, there was something. So we're beginning to see, again, you're seeing these flashes, intermittent flashes going on there.
Right.
Which seems like there's stuff going into the exhaust plume and then burning and incinerating at that point.
Yeah. And unfortunately you can't see the tower anymore, but it's getting close to clearing the tower now, but we're at 15 seconds. So
it might be about 15 seconds before.
Yeah. I think it's probably a little longer than that because I don't see the bottom of the rocket yet.
Yeah. And we're already seeing at that point that there's 3 engines out. So
so there you go. And you can see the 2 outer ring. Right. Mm-hmm. It's possible that the one in the middle is, that could have gotten hit by something too. Also notice there's a weird thing that happens. Watch during the flight. It seems like the ones that are out change. And I don't know what that is. So it's
there was something. So that you're going to keep getting more. And there was one that went out and then came back on.
Right.
And I don't know if that was like a telemetry error or something else. Yeah. And there's also, we were going to see that there is an extra engine out that does not show up on the telemetry.
Right. And I don't know if maybe as the ship rolls that maybe they change the positioning of those things. I don't know. We'll have to pay attention.
I think it's right. That does not quite match up what we're going to see. It's rotated about 180 degrees.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So when you try to match the two, you have to mirror the image to be able to figure it out. Yeah.
So at a rough guess, it's somewhere around 16 seconds it clears the tower. So that is what do you remember what the Saturn V was? Because it was a lethargic.
I think it was around 8 seconds. Somewhere around 8. It was under 10 seconds that it was definitely cleared the tower.
Right. And that, and the Saturn V was a ponderous beast getting off the tower. So this, I really thought it was going to run on the tower because it was so slow. I was like, oh gosh. So anyway, all right. So we can maybe ramp it up to full speed now. And okay. So there's the bottom and
okay, so right there, stop that for a second. I'm wondering what's going on the right side there. You see there's some flame and some stuff to the right side.
Well, I think it's venting, isn't it?
That's what I don't know, whether that's venting, but you also see something that looks like venting and also something that looks very hot.
It really should not be venting at this point, though.
I don't know if that's normal. To me, it seems like, is there something going on there? Well, is that one of the engines that had flamed out and we're seeing something like that, like some fuel dumping over? Because it's possible looking at the 2 that are out. So those engines that went out, I don't know if they were able to shut down the plumbing completely, whether you have a valve that would turn it off or whether you're still going to have some leakage.
You know what the other interesting thing is, though, that I'm trying to remember the Starship launches because I believe that they kept venting as they were flying it too. So
it may have been, but I would think
the vents out.
Yeah.
So
you shouldn't have to vent at this point because you're consuming it so quickly that you shouldn't have an overpressure situation.
Yeah, which is odd.
Yeah. But so we just continue on there and just look at that and try to figure out what's going on there. And then I think at around and when we come back into this, we can't see anything right here. But very soon, now we see. I don't know.
It's venting.
Is that a different camera? Is that a different viewpoint there? Okay, it's a different viewpoint.
You know,
if you look on the left side, you see something down there, and to me, that's in the area of where those engines may have flamed out.
Like this guy right here, where there's
right there. There's something wrong.
Kind of shooting sideways-ish.
Yes, exactly.
You know what the That what we thought was venting could easily just be the fact that it's cryogenically cold and that it's interacting with the atmosphere and we're getting water condensation there.
You could be, but it'd be, I think, a bit more symmetric. I mean, we were seeing a lot of ice breaking off right at the very beginning. And I think you might still see some chunks there. So I wasn't worried about some of those chunks I saw falling off because like, oh, that's just ice.
Yeah. It was the stuff coming upward that I was worried about. That shouldn't have happened.
But you continue on here. I think at 33, we're definitely going to see an engine rud. So you're starting to see, right there. You see how bright that is?
Yeah. Wow. That thing just.
There we go.
Apart.
You see, and it's coming from that. Now this is weird.
The cameras, I think, are being hit by the shock waves, and so it's actually
exactly, because you look at that and you think, wait a minute, why is it wiggly like that? It's like, don't worry, because don't worry, it doesn't have that mode of oscillation. It is weird. I think that is an artifact of the camera.
It looks like it's a spaghetti noodle there. It's like
yeah.
So the rocket is not doing that. That's optical because of, I'm assuming, the pressure waves and the heat waves and things like that.
Yes.
Let me see if I can back it up enough where we can see that thing disintegrate.
It could also be the shock wave itself. So it's not necessarily something hitting the cameras, but the shock wave in the atmosphere is distorting what you see.
Exactly.
And that happened on the Falcon launch that went through the moon. The lower part of the moon was very jagged, and that was because of the shock waves that were going out that were actually distorting the
that's
image.
A great picture, by the way.
Yes.
Do you have that up on your wall?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, grab it. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Here, I'll stop sharing for just a second. If you grab it. Yeah, there we go. Because I think that's who took that picture again? Matt
Cutchell took this picture.
Yeah. So look at the bottom
part of the moon. You see the lower part of the moon, how it's kind of all fuzzy there.
Right.
But the upper part is fine. And that's because of the shock waves coming out from the plume that is causing that atmospheric distortion.
Right.
And Scott Manley went into a discussion of that and why it's there. I thought it was like, well, that's kind of weird. Why couldn't they get the right? But that is actually showing an artifact. And that's probably what we're seeing, the same thing.
Right. You have to remember that, as with, like, if you look at a pencil in water, how it bends because of the different refractive index.
Yes, exactly.
Air changes its refractive index depending on how compressed it is. And so what's happening is you're getting these shock waves that are compressed, decompressed, compressed, decompressed.
It's because you're getting a density, because pretty much what happens when you get the shock wave is that the atmospheric density is changing a lot.
Right.
And so from that pressure wave and Boyle's law and everything, you're going to see the density change. And as things go through a different medium, because the densities change, you end up getting a little bit of a distortion. So it clearly would be something like that. Yeah.
Right. Effectively, air, because it's different densities, because of these massive shock waves, is doing the same thing. So let me go back. I found it right before the thing blows up. Unfortunately, I think it's on the backside where we can't really see it that well, but you can definitely see pieces of stuff. So here, just watch the bottom of the rocket on the left-hand side, I believe, especially. So as it's, ignore the wiggle right there. Boom.
Yeah. You see another. Yep. Oh yeah. That was okay. So you rewound again. Yeah. So we're seeing that.
So it's here and then boop and then boom. Boom. Yeah. There's
okay.
And let's see what happens to the rocket engine. So there's like the two out, and what we'll probably see is another one go out.
Very quickly, we're going to see probably
and then pieces. Then we see pieces like black and whatever. Oh, and another one. Yeah.
Now, there was some speculation that might have been the HPU, the hydraulic power unit, that went. I'm not so sure about that, because
it's pretty, what do you call it? Engine rich there. It looks like it's starting.
Yeah. It's burning. At some point it burns very cleanly. And whenever you start seeing something orange in there, that means something is definitely igniting in there and is getting incinerated. Because that's where the color comes from, is usually like carbon and other stuff getting into the flame itself. But the pure methane at some point will just be so clean. Right. And if it's it might be a little bit fuel rich here also, which might be why we're getting a little bit of that color. Right.
Well, I'm looking specifically at the engine that's pretty much the closest to us. That one is glowing extra bright, and it does not look good.
No, that does not look good. That looks like it's coming apart. It's starting to rud. And I think maybe very soon after that, we are going to see a couple of engines go out in the telemetry. Yeah.
I love how the rocket is dancing, wiggling.
Yeah. That is absolutely great. Yeah.
But you can see how that thing is flaming bright, less bright, less bright. So here, I'm just going to go ahead and play it and see if we get Wow, that is
Okay, there's another one. There's another one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if the HPU went out, if the hydraulic power unit went out, I'm not sure that they would have any control authority then, because that's, I think, is what is probably controlling the gimbling.
Yeah.
So that's
And
why I'm not sure it would
it's-
be that would have won, because at that point they may have lost control without that.
right.
And I don't know how much the grid fins aren't going to be able to do anything for you, but the
Right.
ailerons that they have on the Starship itself, I don't know if they're able to have any control of the
Yeah.
vehicle.
And not to pick a fight with Tim Dodd, but I know he was reacting immediately, but I don't believe he thought that Max Q was what did it and broke it, but I don't think so, because they said they called out that they went through Max Q. He was saying that basically the fins on Starship were causing such instability that it broke up or flipped because of that, but it clearly made it 33 kilometers into space. There's still atmosphere, but not much.
Yeah,
So yeah.
It would still be pretty thin. Yeah.
Right. So anyway, he was reacting instantly to it. So, obviously, but whatever. But anyway, I think that was probably an incorrect analysis of the situation. But anyway.
Yeah. I mean, okay, there, when you play it faster, it looks like it's just vibrating and not doing the wiggling back and forth.
Right. You can see that the telemetry still shows, however, that it's only 3 engines out.
Right. And of course, we don't know what the delay is between the telemetry coming in and them updating that. So then we keep on going. It's hard to say.
No, we just lost another one.
Yeah, look at that.
5320.
So they finally show that. And now you see a streamer. Look at that. I mean, if you look at the exhaust right now, you see the exhaust is starting to get nice and clean. So you can see the engines, except that one where it seems like something is bleeding out from there.
Right. And
So
if I had to take a guess, the bottom one, which is close to us, is probably the one that went out. And then the other 2 that went out are on the far side, like that we can't see.
Yes.
At a guess. So simply because we watched that thing flame out and then it showed up on the telemetry.
Right. Yes. So we're seeing that. And then we might see I think we're going to see another one crop up here in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. And something was a bit rich there. So
yeah, I mean, look at that.
That wasn't a rud, but what that might have been like the remaining chunks, whatever's left over, just finally falling in.
Or it's possible that engine might have actually rutted completely and that it's just an uncontrolled dump of fuel at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Where they can shut it off.
Which of course would catch fire and not burn as cleanly because it's not the correct mixture.
And I assume they have a valve that's maybe able to cut off the flow so that it doesn't keep going, but still you're going to have a little bit of residual in those lines. Yeah. That's just going to come out. Or
it could have just taken some time for them to shut it down. So
yeah,
that is it's going on, man. There's some. Eventually, it gets back to and another.
Okay, so we see so we see it shows that other one went out.
I'm gonna guess. Okay, I'm trying to think of where these things are, like rotated around. So anyway,
we'll see pretty soon where it is. When we get the close up.
Did you see that at the bottom? Something else just broke off and went flying.
Yeah.
So hold on.
Yep.
Let's see if I can catch the moment here. So yeah, we've lost another one. Oof, and it gets really rich there. And then right there. There was right at the bottom where the where the excuse me, telemetry is. Let's see if I can catch it back up again. I don't know what that was, but something went flying. Oh, okay. So watch down. I'm going to go forward again, but watch right above where the little baby Starship is, that shows the attitude.
Mm-hmm.
There's something catches the light and goes down to dark blue color. Right there. So there's a little poof, and then whoop.
Yes. Oh, something coming up. Yeah.
So it's but you can see right before that, there's a little poof right there.
That's a bit too late to be ice. I don't think that would be ice coming off, but probably something else.
It looks like another one of the engines is out on the telemetry. I don't know when that kicked in.
Oh, that was already there. So
that was already there. Okay. So let's see if another one pops up then after this point. So
another one will pop up in a little bit.
So it might be that. It might have been that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that one, I'm not sure if it pops up. So we'll see it here. It's a little bit hard to see when we zoom in. So basically, there's a 212.
Yeah.
All right. But what we're seeing is a 211. So you can see from that, and it's rotated like about 180 degrees.
And
so the center engine that's out, you'll see is on the left side, and that view is on the right side here. So you just have to flip it 180 degrees.
Take the whole thing,
Right.
rotate it 180.
Right. Now, as you keep looking at this, every now and then you're going to see it get very bright orange. So as you're running along here, you can see there are chunks going into the exhaust plume.
Right.
Is it still moving ahead? Okay. Yeah. So I guess.
Oh, sorry. So I just wanted to make a note. So the one that you said, because clearly at the bottom, right where the 5320 is, there should be a second one of those should be out there because
yes, exactly. There's definitely two out there. There's definitely two.
There's got to be two out there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, we can see that there's two out.
You see that?
So you see that?
Poofing.
Yes.
Yeah. Poofing.
Yeah. That's not like an RCS puff or anything like that. No, that's chunks falling overboard.
We were debating this morning whether it was Scott Manley or who said engine rich, but this is definitely, at some points burning engine rich.
Yes, definitely.
Oh gosh, I guess I have to back up further than I thought.
Then we get the UFO sighting in just a little bit, where you get in really close. It's
there's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, you see a lot of those.
Here it goes, boop, and it appears. So this looks like fuel dump, right? My guess would be methane, and then it catches fire as it exits the vehicle.
Yes, that could be, could very well be, or it could just be a piece of hot metal that just got in there and just got incinerated.
It's pretty long,
it's pretty long, but I'm just kind of wondering whether the methane as it explodes, whether it would kind of come out more, whereas that seems to be very collimated as it goes through.
Yeah,
almost like it's
whatever
like
that is.
hot chunks that are just being heated up.
It's pretty big, though. I mean, in perspective, that little streak that's about to catch fire is big, right? So that's like poof.
Yeah.
So I would take a guess.
It's hard to say. Could be.
Anyway,
it's so we're about a minute up. So so we don't have enough. There's not that much expansion still in the atmosphere, so it's possible that it would stay like that.
And I believe they called out max Q well before it
somewhere around a minute. Yeah, which is kind of strange.
It was only doing. I think it's around now. It was somewhere around 1,000 kilometers an hour, and usually max Q is around 1,100 for the Falcon.
Right.
Yeah. So, but this is fantastic. I mean, congratulations to SpaceX for giving us a view like that. This is incredible. but it looks like Christmas tree lights or something. Like if you go to a what are those? Like a store, like a place that has been the sign has gotten old and half the lights are out.
Oh yeah.
It looks like that. So anyway, but so
like the Hot L Baltimore, right?
Exactly. Hot L Baltimore. So there's 1, 2 out up here, and that would translate probably to this bottom part, right where the 53 is. And obviously only one is called out there. And then we've got the one, which would translate to the one
to that one there. Yes.
9 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly.
There. And then we've got 2 more down here, and then we've got the one out in the center. So, and the center ring is what can actually gimbal to create the
yes.
Ring. So
the outer ones cannot. All they can do is they can throttle up or down to maybe get a little bit of thrust vectoring that way, but not by gimbling.
So, I mean, if you look at the ones that are burning, they all, just from the brightness, look like they're burning at the same efficiency or whatever. So they haven't back some to compensate for the others. So it's
hard to tell. It's hard to tell whether they did or not. I'm not sure whether they're able to do it just with thrust vectoring or not.
Right.
And a lot of that blurriness you're seeing there is I think the camera is having a hard time staying in focus.
Yeah.
So it is actually kind of a blurred image. And so it's really hard to read into what you're seeing there.
But still, I mean, wow, that's just super cool that we're able to see the bottom end of the rocket like that.
Yeah. It is amazing. It is absolutely amazing.
Wow. I mean, that's just just awesome job, folks. I can't even believe who was tracking this stuff. And also we had things from like Cosmic Perspective, and Mars Embassy got some good stuff. I mean, there's just a lot of fantastic views of this. So here we're starting to see contrails. So I'm assuming probably passing through the sound. Yeah. 1168 kilometers an hour is probably right around.
Right. So we're finally supersonic. Yep.
Yeah. So we're hitting supersonic, which gives us a contrail. And I assume that this attitude control, the attitude at the end is great because the thing just starts spinning. But here we've got attitude showing it's tipping down range. Working on.
Yep.
Once it's out of the thickest of the atmosphere, it starts tipping down range a bit. So I mean, we're moving. It's getting up to a decent speed there. And
Yeah, we're not seeing any orange now, which is interesting. So,
Right.
okay,
Oh,
now
but
we're
yeah,
seeing
we
a lot.
did.
Now
That
we
was
just saw that. And so the question is,
and
did we lose another engine at that point
right.
or
So
not?
look at the telemetry. In a couple of seconds, we should see it reflect that. Maybe if there's
We
another.
end up somewhere in there, we end up seeing one of those engines go out. Yeah, that's something
Right.
is, I don't think we ever pick up that engine going out on the
Right.
telemetry.
There's, I mean,
Whichever one that is, we don't know.
That's not symmetrical, right? You can see
Yeah.
one end of this is really, really flaming out, and the other end
Right.
is
Right. And everything had been burning really nice and clean
Yeah.
at that point. And now we're getting some other, that's also weird, probably.
also that.
Oh, look. Yeah.
It is. You notice that it's beginning to spin and roll and stuff. So it
Mhm.
doesn't look. But the fact that the flame is orange is a bad sign.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So something is going over there. Yeah, it's either fuel rich or engine rich. And then we continue on here. And
Right.
so this is where we're supposed to have stage separation, and it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So we're getting ready for that. And then
They never update the telemetry. That's interesting. It doesn't show any other engines going out. But now you can see
at some point it does. It shows an engine go out and come back somewhere in here.
But
we end up
that this thing has gone very, very, very sideways. Which
Yes.
okay, so all right, if I understand this correctly, it's a trebuchet maneuver, right? The whole idea of this thing is that the booster and the Starship are going to execute a spin, and at the point of throwing it, it detaches the latches and basically throws the top part.
By getting into a spin, has centripetal acceleration, and then just at the right point, you break loose, and that means that's going to kind of go off. They're going to go off in different directions.
Right.
Because less parts.
Yeah. So here's what you save with this. So if you think about this, as soon as you cut off the engines on the first stage, it goes into free fall, which means that all of the liquid inside the second stage is just floating around. And it doesn't have, you have to use what normally is ullage motors, which I believe are actually just little solid rocket motors that go. But that is extra weight, extra complexity. And of course, SpaceX being SpaceX is like, why don't we just throw it so that we're accelerating it forward as we're chucking it? It can light the engines.
They're already doing that with the Starlink deployment anyways. So evidently they like that maneuver.
Yeah.
So here you go. We need to get an artificial gravity in order to push all the propellant down towards the engines to be able to start up the engines, and also get the separation to all happen at the same time.
Right. Yeah. And the other part is the separation, because of course, if you don't have springs or explosives, you don't have a detachment between the two.
Right.
And this automatically gives you that because you've got angular momentum, which is going to chuck it. But it does mean that at least one of the Starship motor engines is going to have to start almost instantly, because once they become separated, it goes weightless again.
You need it. Exactly. And maybe they might do it with like the RCS thrusters or something like that, can give you a little bit of that as well.
Right.
But I think they would have to, but they never get the separation, so they can't do that.
Right.
So if we keep going.
There's you can hazard. So basically, it looks like even with all the failures and stuff, the first stage booster did what it was supposed to. The failure point came at the separation that never happened.
Right.
And it was out on the pad for a long time. There's a lot of dynamic forces that interact as it's launching. So it's possible that the latches, a latch or multiple latches, got locked and just
it's exposed to salt air for days on end. I mean, we know what it's like that sometimes you slip something in and you're able to remove it, and you come back a few days later and it's stuck in there, and thermal, who knows what. It could have been that something just made it very difficult for it to separate.
Right. There's also a thing called vacuum fusion, which, remember Gemini?
Oh yeah.
Where they had two different metal surfaces and they fused together, and they couldn't open the door for the spacewalk, I think, or something like that, or close it.
Yeah. You can do something like that. Yeah. Yep.
So it is even possible that something like that happened because
you can if you take two pieces of metal in a vacuum and put them together, they will weld together.
Right, which is absolutely crazy. But it's possible at 33. Well, this is only 20K up in the air, so maybe not. But
it wouldn't be that. But there could be other issues that have caused that. What's interesting is I think at some point, they call out MECO. It looks like the engines are still burning. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Well, okay, so we get something here that doesn't look good.
I mean, maybe that was supposed to be MECO right there, and
somewhere around there was supposed to be MECO. Because when they're showing this, I think that's when they said MECO.
Yeah.
and then
Well,
we're
you can
not
see it's still
11th.
accelerating, right? It's still going. It's still going. At some point, it's
Still accelerating. Okay, so Miko comes later. Maybe
right
that was
there.
just a shot in there.
I
Okay.
believe 2114 is where, yeah, see, it stops. And then it kind of does this weird thing where it's still burning. So you can, if you back it up just a little and watch the speed, it's increasing, and then it stops, which I believe is when Miko was, and then it doesn't stop. So it kind of stops and then doesn't stop.
Yes, and now we probably want to have it, and then it is showing some strange things on the telemetry, but it doesn't matter. It's like, well, wait a minute, what's
and
going
then boom,
on?
Right there, 2114, it just stops, and you can see it's trying to do something, but it's doing its thing and it's just going crazy. So yeah.
So now we're seeing that weird maneuver. Yeah, starting to flip around.
Yeah.
Some of that orange, I don't know if that's just interactions with the atmosphere because it's flipping around, or if it's pieces coming off.
Yeah. Yeah. But this is the moment when things go wrong. I believe that even with all the mistakes and problems they had, the whole booster stage went well, but obviously at this point it should have separated, but it's just flipping.
Yeah.
And by the way, the structural integrity of this is incredible.
It is amazing. It is amazing.
I can't believe this thing didn't break up and explode as soon as it started flipping. So.
Especially the booster stage. You know, the upper stage should be okay because it's still full.
Yes.
So it's like when a Coke can is full, it's very hard to crush. But when it's empty, it's very easy to crush. So right now, you should be able to crush that booster stage with ease.
But you can also see that booster stage, even though it should not be igniting anymore, there's definitely flamey stuff still coming out. So.
Right. And it's hard to say whether that's intentional at that point or if that's just
also you can see the right there. Let me back it up just a wee bit here.
Right, yeah.
You can see there, it looks like what they're doing is they're firing the RCS. See that? It looks like it's attempting to stop itself from spinning or something.
So it could be it could be the cold gas thrusters there or something.
Right. See right there, they look like they're just going hardcore trying. Maybe they're trying to make it spin faster so they can get it separated.
Maybe it's hard to say what the control system is doing, but it still looks like the first stage engines are burning or something. Something is causing that to be a source of heat and flame.
Right.
And then we're going to see, I think at some point just before it ruds. Okay, if you go back a frame or two. Now there's this big question of whether it was FTS or not.
I think Elon weighed in and said FTS, but that doesn't.
They may have, but if you go back, what you end up seeing is just before it goes, you see that it looks like it's getting very bright at the end.
Yeah.
So it's not like the explosion. See, you're starting to see this, and then it starts to get a bit worse, and then it gets a pretty big as you come around, and then you get the explosion. The explosion seems to start almost like right there. So stop now. Okay, halt that.
Is it?
Be very close.
Right there,
yeah. Okay, so if you go back a couple of frames.
That looks more like a RUD to me. Because it looks like FTS would have exploded the whole thing. That started at the bottom.
Yes, and then you see the next, you might see an FTS after that, and that you see the explosion of what looks like the booster, and then you see a secondary explosion, which is the Starship itself. And the question is whether that was detonated by FTS or whether that was a result of the explosion.
Right.
But when you go back and you see where the propagation begins, the propagation is all beginning at the very end. It's not beginning.
Yeah. So, and it looks like at least two engines are still lit. I mean, there's two definite points of light.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure the FTS it's like a cord that goes along the whole thing.
Right. Yeah.
So so you go up here, you see something is happening here. Like there's a failure there. That's causing an explosion, and then it's consuming the rest of the vehicle.
Right. I hadn't thought about this, but maybe they were having problems separating because it didn't Miko. Because there's still thrust, it was unable to.
Yes. And it might be that the engines were shut down, but the ones that had rutted were still providing a little bit of thrust.
Yeah.
If maybe they couldn't. If the valves are compromised or something like that, and propellant's going overboard, you're still going to get some kind of thrust.
That is very true.
And remember, Relativity had that issue. They didn't get ignition, but they were getting thrust, because the propellant was going over. And even if the props were down, you probably still had enough pressure in the tanks.
Right. And it's really small, but it looks like there are 2 points right there. So it's possible that two of the engines had rutted to such an extent that they blew out the valves, and so there was no way of
they blew out the valves, and then you've got the pressure in there, which you need anyways. The the autonomous pressure, autogenous pressure to make sure that you don't get implosion. And that's just going to be pushing
that might have been an FTS. So I'm guessing that was the second stage they terminated.
That was FTS there. Yep.
Yeah. So because they didn't want, I mean, that would be super dangerous if that entire thing fell into the ocean. It probably would have been intact. I mean, at that point, it probably separated. So
yeah, maybe, who knows? If it had been able to separate and was intact, maybe it would have brought itself down.
Yeah, but I'm sure they were just like, we're not taking a chance with that thing. That's a monstrous beast. Yeah. So there's a whole, so it was probably first stage RUD, second stage FTS. Yeah. So, wow. Okay. So we have frame by frame this sucker. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Final thoughts. Excitement was guaranteed.
Yeah, it was exciting.
Ellie was screaming. The people there said they were screaming. So I don't know. What do you think?
I was screaming. I didn't have the live stream of myself, but yeah, I was excited and screaming. I was thinking of running upstairs if it went to look over the Gulf to be able to see if I could see it potentially coming over.
Right.
But
at least the contrail. Yeah.
It's possible. But when I was looking at it, it was going like south of Cuba. So it's like, it might have been tough. But if it really was up there, we may have been able to catch something.
Right.
But it might have been really hard because I tried looking for the relativity launch, which was a smaller booster and burning methane. And the two together, it makes it really hard to see a launch. But when you're seeing with RP1, it makes a nice orange plume that you can see from 150 miles away. Now, in this case, it would have been a lot more. But then again, people in New York and everywhere else are usually seeing the Falcon 9 launches trucking up the coast. So, but that's usually in the evening. Yeah, it's up really high. So, and then if you get in the evening, and then it's really obvious it's there. So I don't know. Well, morning light, it might have been okay. The sun would have been the other way. Who knows? But it didn't make it that far. So
well, just remember, as the cadence picks up, there'll be night launches, and so hopefully you'll be able to see it easily at night because it'll be trucking.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So
that'll be pretty cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. This was like fantastic to like just kind of like look at this and examine it, and Monday morning quarterback the whole thing. So, so yeah, I think at a rough guess, without knowing what SpaceX's official word is, obviously problems with the pad. Obviously, they had some engines go out on the first stage, but the first stage apparently compensated and performed what it was supposed to do.
Control system did well.
To get the two pieces to separate. They were married to each other. Did not want to be.
And the other thing is redundancy proved its point that you can have a couple engines out and still be able to launch it.
Right.
And probably still be able to run your mission if you have to. So that's part of the reason for that redundancy there. The jury is out. Are the Raptors reliable? I think they are. I don't think it's like the engine just failed. I think they just got hit with so much debris that what are you going to, what can you expect from something like that? Yeah. So until they are able to do something with the pad, not throwing stuff back at the vehicle, you can't judge what the reliability of those, because look, they're supposed to be reusable. They shouldn't go out in the first second or two. So you've got to make sure you have a lot of cycles in there. And I think it's just too much junk being thrown at it.
And were there 3 out right at the start? Is that
it appears, when the graphic first comes up, it shows it, and it's showing it maybe around T+20 or something like that. So we don't know if they were out immediately.
So
all we can do is assume that.
Only 2 more went out over time, and those were the ones that we could see flame out.
I think more than that. I had a total of 7 that were out, because it showed, I think, maybe 6 in the graphic, but I could see the graphic was wrong. There was another engine that was out, so it was clearly 7. And then there was like this other engine that went out and then came back on, and so they were always in pairs, 2s, 2s, and 2s, around there, and then the one in the center. So maybe there was 8 that went out. 7 for sure that we could see were gone.
Okay.
And then at least 2 of them that were a pair, and the other one, and of course, being a pair either means that one ruds, the other one ruds, or it's like whatever debris was getting thrown up at that point hit both engines at the same time.
So the most that they ever have in this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We clearly could at least see 6 because there was a second one out by that other one. But from the moment of launch, there were 3 that were out. So I'm looking
3 out, and then right, exactly. So at the most we see 6 in the graphic, but if you actually look at the close up, you can see that it's clearly 7 are out.
But anyway, so I mean, odds are that probably considering that they were out initially, that at least 3 of them, maybe more, were impacted by something and just flamed out.
They could have been
or never
compromised
started
too.
properly.
Yeah, and there could have been things that could have been causing them to suddenly only get 70% rather than 90% thrust, because, you know, if the engine bell gets hit or something like that, so the rest of the engine, you might have good integrity, but now you're not getting the expansion you need. So you lose a little bit of performance that way. There could be the other thing is that when these engines go out, the exhaust plumes start interacting in a funny way that can then also cause compromising. And then again, the control system might say, whoa, wait a minute, you know, I can't push this hard over here because I don't have enough push on the other side. Exactly. So I'm going to have to back off in order to keep everything even. Right. So the control system may have been backing off a little bit. Yeah. Which is why it was slow off the pad. Yeah. Yeah. Which, I mean, but still, slow or not, it looks to me like the first stage did its job. And it did. Go SpaceX team for keeping that thing upright with that many flaming out at the beginning. Right. I mean, it's impressive to have a control. So I'm trying to remember, was it Ad Astra, the one that up in Alaska? Remember, they had a flame out. They did the slide because they had 5 engines and they had 125% thrust performance. Yeah. And one goes out, which means you're not at 100%. So they had 4 engines that just barely had enough to be able to fight the gravity load. And they just kind of went sideways until it got light enough and went up. Everyone said, oh, it's a complete failure. And I was like, that is incredible. That means they've got a really hardy control system that it just didn't fall over. Because remember the 50s when something like that happened, it was just fall over and blow up. And they were then able to take it to a safe location to then detonate it. Right. So to me, that team, wow, they had it. And then you see the same thing with SpaceX, is that you've come up with a control system that is able to make sure, even when all these things everything's going wrong. And that might actually be the best test. That it's like, look, let's just throw everything at it and let's just see how it endures. And it's like, it endured pretty well. Yeah. No, the guidance system on that thing was incredible. This is the largest rocket ever launched, ever. I think it's even taller than the N1, right? But anyway, it's certainly taller than the Saturn V and bulky, and it still managed to get off the pad with 3 engines out from the get-go. Right, and then to do the trebuchet and then not like fall apart or anything else. So there was plenty of opportunities for that booster to just decide that, oh, I've had enough. I'm going to exactly. And remember, this is a booster that's been there for a long time. I mean, that's not something that just rolled off the line. Just to kind of to keep it in perspective is that if you take it and shrink it down to the size of a Coke can, right, the wall thickness will be about 3 times thinner than a Coke can. Okay. Now, a Coke can is made out of aluminum. This is made out of stainless steel, but still, you're talking about this, something that's very, very thin. And of course, it gets its strength from the fact that it is actually filled up with a fluid under pressure. And of course, we know with Coke cans, you can stand on them when they're full with no problem. But when they're not, you can stand on it. But then if you just like hit it with something, a little perturbation, it starts to buckle and will just collapse instantaneously. So they prevent the catastrophic collapse by the fact that it remains pressurized. Right. So that means that system is working, and it was working in both tanks. Because remember, you got both the oxygen and the methane, and whatever it was doing, that worked well as well. But again, that could also explain why we're seeing the orange flame and it didn't MECO, because if the valves broke, you have pressure in the tank. So it's going to keep dumping. And it's going to keep dumping. And you have to have pressure in the tank. Yeah. Without pressure in the tank, it is going to collapse. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So anyway, I mean, amazing job, SpaceX. It's like, I would consider that an incredibly successful test. That was incredible. So just have to figure out. Are we going to make the 5 gigabyte upload limit for Twitter or not? I guess not. Yeah. You talk too much, John. I'm talking too much. It's all my fault. Damn it. All right. With that, we will leave everyone. Thank you all for joining us, and let us know in the comments what you think if we missed anything. Yeah. All right, cool. We'll see y'all later. Okay. Bye-bye. Yep. Cheers.